social distancing at the Chamber, also known as Happy Hour with Hammer. My name is Garrick Taylor, as always joined by the CEO of the Arizona Chamber, Glenn Hammer. Hey, Glenn.
Good to see you.
Glenn, between now and Election Day, we need to probably put a slight addendum on the title of this show. We are in a race to rescue Arizona, aren't we?
We really are. It's for all the marbles. We need to defeat Proposition 208, and I expect when we do so, we will save the state, and we will continue to put more and more dollars into our entire education system. We'll continue to make sure that there's real accountability and that there's good measurement of results. And Garrick, we will continue to make sure that our economy outperforms the national economy.
I want to talk to you about what's going on in the neighborhood. On a previous edition, you talked from the perspective of a former New Yorker and the fact that Florida is full of former New Yorkers, and you took a wrong turn somewhere and ended up in Arizona. But it's a real phenomenon. Now, something I'd like to talk to you tonight, though, is about regional competitiveness. When it comes to our neighbors in the Four Corners region, New Mexico, Colorado, Utah, Arizona has the best income tax rate. But we're all kind of lumped together in that 4.5 to 5 range. Our friends in Nevada, they don't have a state income tax rate. And then next door in California, well, they're in a different universe at more than 13%. If Proposition 208 passes, Glenn, Arizona rockets all the way up to an 8% top income tax rate. We would stick out like a sore thumb among our neighbors.
We would. And while Arizona voters will decide whether or not to undo all the good that's happened in the state, and by the way, in a bipartisan way, when I'm talking about the reduction of our personal income taxes, which is what so many of our small businesses pay through. It's not just Fife Simonton. It's not just Governor Ducey. Actually, one of the most major income tax reduction in terms of rate reduction occurred during Governor Napolitano's tenure.
Right.
You're absolutely right, Garrick. It would take us from a situation where we're very competitive when it comes to the entrepreneurial type companies that tend to produce most of the new jobs to one where we would be worst in the region outside of California. And that's just not something we want to do. And I'll also say which should concern all of us, while Arizona voters will be considering a dramatic 77.7% increase to the highest marginal tax rate that so many businesses pay, our friends in Colorado will be considering an income tax reduction.
Right.
So, we want to continue to be more competitive, not dramatically less so.
Glenn, we've talked about the fact that this is bad policy at the worst possible time when the economy, let's admit it's a little wobbly in the face of a pandemic. Knock wood, Arizona is doing okay compared to other states nationally. But I think that point that you just made is an important one. We've got a neighbor that's about to or could be taking a step down the income tax ladder when we're about to rocket up.
Garrick, we're in a pandemic, and while I'm bullish that we'll soon have better therapeutics and a vaccine, in terms of restoring full economic activity, that's going to take some time, and particularly for some of the sectors like tourism, where it's so dependent upon people feeling comfortable and larger crowds. You think about the dynamics of Arizona's economy, we should be doing everything possible to make it easier and friendlier for our small businesses, our entrepreneurial class to open, stay open, and not just keep people on the payroll, but to have the resources to provide them with higher wages. And Garrick, another important point here, and I just don't understand the way this was designed. So take an Apple with a $2 trillion market cap. They're not affected by this. They're not going to pay any sort of increase in their taxes. but an Arizona grown business, an entrepreneurial type business, will see its taxes go up to 77.7%.
Right.
It just doesn't seem right. And I don't understand the design of this. But then again, let's remember, it wasn't designed in Arizona. It was basically designed in Portland, Oregon, at least according to the state Secretary of State reports, that over 4 million of the $4.6 million reported thus far have come from a Portland, Oregon incorporated entity.
Yeah, a lot to unpack there. We've talked about our concerns about the state initiative process for a while now, but this gets at the heart of it. This is an out-of-state lab experiment that's being conducted in Arizona, and the authors of this won't have to live with the consequences.
No, we will. And again, if you could go back to before the pandemic, probably the healthiest economy in the United States, and arguably no state over the last 4 or 5 years has done more in terms of putting additional resources into its K through 12 system, as well as some from very successful reform efforts like results-based funding. So you take a look at Governor Ducey's 20 by 2020 plan to increase teacher pay by 20%. We've strongly supported that. The last installment was passed as part of the budget that passed in I don't know, at some point this spring. So we want to see more resources in, to our K through 12 system, but to do so consistently will require a growing economy, not a shrinking one. Right. Or not one that becomes dramatically less competitive. And I'm afraid whatever the intentions are of those from out of state that concocted this plan and paid for it, it's going to hurt the Arizona economy, and ultimately it will hurt our ability to fully fund not just our schools, but our other programs, healthcare, and other services that we all have come to rely on.
That's a great point. We're going to be talking about these issues every night between now and Election Day, though I do want just to close out this segment with a cautionary tale from the West. You've talked about the New York to Florida pipeline. You probably saw some coverage recently, Glenn, in the Wall Street Journal about Californians who now, in this somewhat location independent world we're living in, the work from home world we're living in, that real estate in Reno, Nevada is flying off the market because of Californians who are flooding markets like that. You could very well envision a scenario like that happening in Arizona.
Well, sure. Because the thing is, as you mentioned, our tax rate would, if we keep regular programming, we're going to continue to see great growth here. Maricopa County right now, as we speak, is the fastest growing county in the United States. That should continue. We have really just the right balance. We have a very good balanced tax system. We're putting more resources into our education system. We are in much better shape than almost all other states when it comes to how we were prepared for this pandemic because of good fiscal governorship by our governor. The $1 billion in the rainy day fund was a smart thing to do, for sure. Why wreck that? Why ruin that? And what also really concerns me, and this was a great report that the Arizonans for Tax Reform Association put out, ATRA, that I believe over half of our workers in the private sector economy work for businesses that would in one way or another be impacted by this tax. We're still in a pandemic. We don't want to do anything that creates any additional headwinds for businesses that are trying to get through this once in a century natural disaster.
Yeah, it's really something that unlike a lot of states, we've been able during this pandemic to avoid major cuts. And that's a combination of prudent budgeting in the previous years. It gave us $1 billion rainy day fund. It's on behalf of, it's as a result of federal stimulus. I'll certainly acknowledge that, but we got to have our cake and eat it too. We got to implement a 20% teacher pay raise plus $1 billion in the rainy day to prevent cuts to education.
Well, let's, when you think about the states that are screaming the loudest for more federal funds are the high income tax states.
Right.
These are California and New York, and to some extent, New Jersey.
Mm-hmm.
The high income tax rate states are the ones that seem to have the biggest budget problems. So it's important to think about that. And the reason, again, is pretty simple. We're a free country. We're the freest country on the planet. We have 50 states. We're all great states. I love all 50 states.
Sure.
However, people tend to love the lower tax states more than the higher tax states. And that's why Florida is growing, Texas is growing, and Arizona has been growing, Tennessee as well. And the states like California, like New York, like New Jersey, that have been the high tax states are going in another direction. We want to keep the regular programming, and the best way to do that is to simply vote no on Proposition 208.
All right. Obviously, more to come on this between now and Election Day. I wanted to get your thoughts on one last topic tonight, and that's a big push from the state for all Arizonans to get their flu shot, really amping up the public messaging in both in English and Spanish, and in areas, certain neighborhoods that really need that extra push. Glenn, we've got to do this to make sure that we don't have a double dip when it comes to a bad disease.
Well, the nice thing is when you get the flu vaccine, it will certainly help keep people well and keep them out of the hospitals. It also removes a possibility when people do get sick. If you've had the flu vaccine, you'll have a better idea that it might be something like COVID-19. Great push from our governor. I'm planning, and our family's planning, to get the flu shot very, very soon. And we've made, as you know, Garrick, great progress in dealing with COVID-19. What I like now is I feel like on this constellation, I'm knocking on wood, the state's on offense, and we are doing the types of things that will keep Arizonans as healthy as we possibly can during the still challenging time.
Glenn, one of the happy outcomes of having an R0 number as low as Arizonans is that it continues to free up hospital assets. And one of the lines of question that we heard today at the press conference is that, a bad flu season could, suck up a lot of those hospital assets. And then we really want to avoid that.
And I'm also hoping that, in addition to the flu shot, as people continue to do the smart things. I was out and about in Arizona today for some business. People are wearing masks. They're physically distancing. As we continue to do that, we have a good chance also of having a much less severe flu season, which will be good also for our younger people that thus far seem to get hit a lot harder by flu than COVID-19. I'm talking really more the K through 12 students.
Yep. Well, get your flu shot. The Taylor family, we've gotten our flu shots. We got it at the drugstore.
You're talking already for this season?
Already for this season. Last week we got
it. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And
we'll catch up this week then.
Yeah, and as was made clear at the press conference today, sure, you can go to your doctor and get it, but you can also just head up to the corner drugstore and knock it out right there. And that's what we did.
Yeah, I tend to just go to the local Walmart, get the shot, and that's it. Get a few things and go on my way.
Just
with a mask.
Yeah, absolutely. Just a quick little note here, Glenn. I know you're interested in this. I know your daughter did this, but I did it. I did the ASU saliva test. Really more out of curiosity than anything. The governor said, we've got the capacity, go get the test. I think you already knew this from your daughter's experience. It's really easy, and you get the results like that. So it was super simple, very user-friendly. Knocked it out from my car at Tempe Diablo Stadium, and that was that. Pretty easy.
How long did it take you to get the results?
I did it on a Friday morning. I had the results Saturday around 11 a.m., noon.
Okay, so same for my daughter, it was a 24-hour next day. It was easy.
Yeah.
and it was not intrusive. So
Right.
we're making a lot of progress. That's good to know that you that you went through that.
Yeah. Yeah. It you got to think about, is it worth it? Is it not? But you've heard Dr. Christ and Governor Ducey say, go ahead and do it. Just we've got the capacity. Now's the time to find out. So
Good.
we're
I'm
gonna.
glad you did it, and glad you're negative.
That's right. All right. Well, more to come, obviously, on Prop 208 throughout the balance of the campaign. Glenn, thanks again.
Thanks, Garrick.